All right, so let's start on time. Welcome all to our production efficiency webinar today. I'm your host, Nicole, and I'm from Smartsheet. I'm an account executive. Um, Before we dive right in, just a quick slide on legal in case we talk about anything future focused, but essentially there's no commitments to any future focused products or changes to Smartsheet. Now, this is our agenda for today. Antonio and Lindsay will be introduced shortly, and they'll go through some of the main solutions and common problems we see in your industry. They'll also be sharing some insights and best practice tips based on their experience, followed by a live demo as well. We'll then go through our closing remarks before closing out our webinar at 11:30, where you can drop off if you need to. Otherwise, do stick around for an extra 10 minutes or so for the Q&A session. Now, as we go through the webinar today, you are more than welcome to jump into the Q&A button at the bottom and add questions as they come up. We'll be answering these questions at the end, so if you've asked a question, do stick around. And before we jump right into it, just some quick housekeeping to cover. Feel free to use the chat button to say hello. Let us know where you're dialing in from. We've got a team with us here today in the chat, so you're welcome to have a chat with them there. And again, if you do have any questions throughout the webinar, please do use the Q&A button to submit them, and we'll be sure to answer them. So again, do stick around. And lastly, if you would like to ask us something live in the Q&A, feel free to raise your hand and we'll unmute you then. So today we're going to hear from two people from InfoSpark, being Antonio and Lindsay. For those who have not met them before, InfoSpark is a platinum solution partner based in Adelaide. So they are solely dedicated to Smartsheet, which means they resell Smartsheet software as well as offer implementation, training, and integration services. They are the current partner of the year for the APJ region, and they have a proven track record, particularly in the manufacturing sector, where they've helped numerous clients across Australia and New Zealand achieve heaps of positive outcomes with Smartsheet. And so first up, we've got Antonio.
Hey everyone. What I wanted to start talking about today was just to give a little bit of background and reinforce our understanding of production cycles. We've worked with a lot of different manufacturing businesses across Australia and New Zealand, and when we're working with them, we typically see two distinct production methodologies emerge. As you can see from the images, process production is a more distinct individual process where, one job follows kind of a straight line production cycle. Project-based production is where a job has, a bit more connectivity and flows between tasks. There's, a little bit more back and forth. Smartsheet at its core is a very flexible tool that can manage your production cycle in a way that suits your individual organization. But I wanted to kind of highlight these two methodologies so that you can kind of relate one of these or a combination of these to what you do inside your organization. So to break these down in a little bit more detail, process production, as I said, is a straight line. It's a very predictable and well-defined production process. You make widgets. We're making 500 green ones. They go from station to station to station. We kind of call it serialized production, where a job moves from one department to the next in a straight line. Project production is a bit more of a robust process where each job is its own little project. The key differentiator there is it still moves through a production process, but there may be back and forth. A really common example is when there's design involved in the production method. So there's some design work happens up front and then some things actually happen, whether that be, approvals, actually procurement or manufacturing of some of the raw materials. And then, there's some assembly stages, but that transitions back and forth. You've got a more robust design phase there. This is also where you produce items that have a lot of customization where each job is very distinctly different from one another. They still go through the factory and they still follow a production process, but they're very unique, each kind of product you produce in that regard. Something, a key thing about here is things happen in parallel. In project production, you will have things happening in parallel across different um, production phases or departments. You could have a design team working on a design, you could have a welding team welding something, and you could have a procurement team trying to obtain more raw materials, all happening at the same time for the same job. Some examples of these, like a process production, is maybe like a cosmetics or pharmaceuticals manufacturer, a powder coating or painting business, food and beverage manufacturer, packaging manufacturer, things like that. Project production more lends itself to kind of furniture, custom joinery, welding, fabrication, complex machinery. If you're producing complex machinery and each, item you're producing is a bit different, has different componentry. Also, it's kind of more when you're creating software and things like that, is more of a project style production methodology. So that's a little bit of information about those styles. And I wanted to comment on, what we hear for both of those manufacturing styles from our clients inside the industry. So we see a lot of really common problems crop up in the manufacturing sector. These can be kind of, those pain points or those problems can kind of be summarized in three distinct points. So there's poor information sharing or information silos between departments. A classic example of that is the sales team doesn't know where a production job is at because they don't have access to information inside the factory. That segues nicely into this leads to a bit of friction with customers. Customers often, their point of contact is the sales team or administrative team. With that team not having visibility of the production cycle, it's hard to provide customers updates. So when they're expecting a delivery or they're trying to manage their own work, when you're getting steel trusses delivered to a work site, as an example, it's really important to get all that timing done correctly. Something else that kind of summarizes those problems is this leads to quite high administrative costs. You need more administrative staff to manage all of these kind of ad hoc tasks. Also leads to a lot of inefficiencies and potentially cash flow problems with actual, having that visibility of has this job been dispatched, and if it has, have we actually invoiced it? And some friction and stuff there. So today, we'll go into a bit more detail about how Smartsheet kind of solves these problems, but I wanted to give you a quick overview of, the solution in Smartsheet. So the inherent features of Smartsheet, such as reports and comments, really helps eliminate those silos between departments and generally helps improve your project delivery timelines and accuracy. What we really strive for in Smartsheet is Smartsheet enables you to have a single program where you can manage a job right from its sale to its production and dispatch all in one place. Within Smartsheet as well, and we'll show this during the demonstration, we can create a self-serve portal so that customers can come in, manage in their own time and see where their jobs are at. Furthermore, in terms of making strategic decisions inside an organization, Smartsheet does a really good job of presenting reports and dashboards to management so that you can have a visual kind of view of how the work's tracking, is there any backlogs, what's going well, what's not going well, how's our capacity and all of that. And another great little feature of Smartsheet is because of the automations and everything built into the platform, it's very easy for you to create your own workflows and automate some, typically not particularly arduous, but frustrating or little time-consuming tasks, such as when a job's completed, sending a customer an email saying, hey, it's done, here's your con node or your tracking node or something like that. So to kind of visualize that in a bit more, I want you guys to meet Gary. Gary is our production manager today, and we're going to kind of talk about him and the experiences he has and see how it relates to you. So he's been the production manager for a solar panel technology company for a few years, and lately they've had a lot of growth. As they continue to grow, it's really exciting, but as that's happened, it's started to surface some of the inefficiencies of the business. There's pieces of paper being run from the office to the factory. there's a whiteboard on the factory floor with post-it notes on it, and it gets a bit confusing. Customers are starting to complain. They don't have, they don't know where their orders are at, what's going on. The sales team's getting a little bit overwhelmed. And, all of this has, come to play recently because it's fine to run a piece of paper around when you've got 10 jobs, but when you've got 100 jobs, it becomes really challenging and it's a whole different story. So what we're going to do today is kind of demonstrate how someone like Gary's experience can be improved with Smartsheet. And I'll introduce you to Lindsay to do that. So Lindsay's our CTO. He's going to run you through quite a practical example where you can see how these kind of pain points can be alleviated by Smartsheet and see a real impact. So please take us away, Lindsay.
Thanks for that, Antonio. I'll just get that screen up. Cool. All right. So just to start with, what Antonio covered was those two production styles. What you're going to see today is that process production style, but almost everything matches pretty well with the solutions we'd be putting in place for those same challenges for people that are in the project production style. So it applies to both camps. And that first point that Antonio was making around pain points with whiteboards and pieces of paper and very often Excel spreadsheets, I want to start there. So what we're looking at here is a Smartsheet dashboard. You can see there's some high-level statistics provided so people can see how overall performance is going. There's the whole book of work that's being carried out, visualized in different ways that make sense. Obviously, dashboards in Smartsheet are very customizable, so you can get exactly the statistics you want to run your business. We've also got the calendar app included here so that we can kind of see day by day what jobs are on for each person and have that visibility. And then we also have links into the different sheets, which is similar to a spreadsheet, and reports. And so I just want to quickly just jump in here and show how would you get your work into a system like this. And it can be done a couple of different ways. You can have a form like this where you put in the information about each order, or you could have an integration with, say, your sales system, so that as soon as the quote is accepted, it gets brought through. So a few different options there. So let's just jump into a report here and we'll have a look at this manufacturer report. So what you can see here is information around who is doing what, and that would let, in Gary's business, the person who's doing the scheduling to come in and work out as new jobs come in, who's going to do it. You've got a visual display of how the jobs are going to get done over time, so you can provide feedback to the customers about when their new job that's just been added to the back of the queue is likely to be finished. But touching on that point around, well, how do you stop just phoning or radioing around the site or walking around trying to understand what's going on? That's where the conversations fit in. So you can see myself as the coordinator. I've sent a note off to Antonio saying, hey, you're going to have to jump on this job as soon as you can. The customers said they need it in a hurry. And what Antonio would see on his report is that exact same data just displayed in a different way that would suit Antonio as a production operator. So he can see that same job, jump in and see that same message and reply to it. So all of a sudden, all of those little touch points of chatting about jobs or recording where things are up to, it all just gets brought into one system and is visible to whoever needs that information. The other thing that Antonio had talked about was the customers also need that similar visibility. So what we've done with a lot of our customers is built a customer portal. So what you're seeing here is the same data. So it's not a separate copy, it's the same information, but restricted down to only the information that's appropriate to be sharing with your customers. And so that same order line that we were looking at before, from the customer's view, this is what they'd see. So they can see it's currently scheduled. This is when it's going to be scheduled. This is what the expected delivery date is, and Smartsheet can can kind of calculate that. And it also lets the customer interact depending on where the job's up to. So this job's only scheduled, and we've allowed the customer to actually put the job on hold if they want. But this job's been manufactured, and so there's no option there to put the job on hold, as obviously it's too late. And the same thing can be done with changing specifications like colors and dimensions and quantities. All right. So what we found with these customer portals is in businesses like Gary's, you would have managers and administration staff that would be receiving phone calls throughout the day. So we've got a customer that we've worked with who've said to us it was taking about one manager worth of effort, one FTE of management, just to receive calls. And some of our customers have had that second mobile phone just because they get so many phone calls from customers. And what this can do in practice is reduce the number of emails and phone calls down to, around 10%. And the customers are in here just getting the information they need as they need it, providing information back to the production team as they need to. And it's actually a better experience for the customer. It's a better experience for the manufacturing business. So it's a bit of a win-win. And the other feedback we've had around this is it allows the production company to be more competitive, because this type of experience being made available to a customer is often market leading in that space, and it keeps the customers retained because they really appreciate having that insight into what's going on and that ability to communicate on an ad hoc basis whenever they want. And so they're more inclined to do more work with that provider. So from there, we've got another view for customer service. So this relates to the administration effort of keeping track of tasks, billing them as soon as it's appropriate to send out invoices, and doing that in the most efficient way possible. So what we're looking at here is a view for customer service. So they've got these cards here where they can look into each of the jobs that are currently underway. If we look at this job here, we can see here's something that's been dispatched. And down here, we're looking at a job with a couple of items in it that's been invoiced. Now, the way we've got this demo set up is if that job is moved on to, yep, we've actually acknowledged delivery now, Smartsheet will then, behind the scenes, be moving that job through an invoicing process automatically. And so this customer is using Xero. We've got a lot of customers on MYOB and the different products within the MYOB family, or other ERPs and finance systems, and we can work with all of those. But what will happen is the invoice will be generated. And so that job that I had here, that job 14, here is that same job with all the information that's needed, the costing and the quantities and the descriptions, the customer details already put in, all put into Xero automatically. So that's going to be saving a lot of time in not having to double enter the information. Often our customers would say, we've got a piece of paper where we've written on there, it's ready to go. And then another person in the admin team goes and enters that manually, hopefully gets all the details right. What we're offering is a different experience where it's completely streamlined and automated. We can set these up as drafts so that you can then come through, cast your eye over it, make sure it's good, make some changes if you want, and send it out. Or we've got a lot of customers that say, we trust that process, it's proven, just send the invoices straight out to the customer. And then the final part of that is this column you can see here, which is we're then also bringing data from the accounting system back into Smartsheet. So we've got the payment status available, so that any other business processes you've got around late payments and how that relates to the delivery of maybe other jobs for that same customer can all be managed really easily within Smartsheet by having that information shared in real time. So yeah, what you've seen there is, like I said, it's applicable to production processes through process or projects, and it's one of those situations where there's no real compromise. There's no cost here. They're win-wins. It's just an investment in better automation, a better customer experience, and a better internal experience.
All right. Thanks for that, Lindsay. That was really insightful. Look how happy Gary is. Well, great news. Everything's coming up, Gary. So I think, to really summarize that, we've seen how Smartsheet has provided, Gary and FabSpark a single program that can manage job flow from sale to dispatch all in one place. We're really big on that because that's the feedback we get from our customers, that switching between different programs and pieces of software or even different tabs can be a really frustrating experience and slow down the day-to-day workflow. There's more streamlined communication between the internal departments as well as in customers. So it's improving, that customer experience and project delivery timelines and accuracy. And I think, as Lindsay mentioned, which I want to highlight, something like that customer portal can really help your organization stand out in the marketplace. So it's really something good to do. Even if you're growing already, you want to continue that growth trajectory. This can help you stand out in the market. I wanted to actually just kind of talk about some real results we've seen from customers in this industry with systems like what you've seen demonstrated today. So things like that customer portal, as well as automated kind of email notifications and things to customers, we've seen, and we've had real case studies from clients, that this has led to a generally 30 to 40% increase in customer satisfaction. That's based on NPS data. Sorry, guys. We've also seen a lot of cost savings. Now, we never want Smartsheet to put someone out of a job, but what we have seen is because of the time savings and the efficiency benefits and the availability of information, it allows you to take on more jobs without having to expand your team, whether that be on the production side, the scheduling side, or the administrative side. So we see a real cost saving in terms of full-time employees there. Something that's kind of often goes under the radar, but we've seen really important and had commented from clients of ours, is having this all-in-one system has actually led to a more positive working experience for staff. It's a really tight employment market at the moment. Finding good staff and keeping them is really challenging in Australia at the moment. So having this, giving employees something where it's very straightforward. They can just come to that report, see exactly what they have to do that day, can easily share information amongst each other, really reduces frustration and leads to kind of higher internal staff satisfaction and stronger retention. It's also really good for people who want to work remotely. Smartsheet can kind of give you that ability if people, have to isolate from COVID, or their parents or something like that, you can enable them a bit more of a flexible work schedule, because a lot of this can be managed remotely thanks to Smartsheet's kind of cloud-based abilities there. So they don't have to physically fill in a piece of paper and run it to the factory and be there on site. The other improvement I really want to talk about is, as Lindsay touched on, because we can actually automate invoice creation, or at least ensure that information is readily available to the accounts team so they're sent on time. For a lot of small businesses, we've seen this lead to a real positive impact on that cash flow because they're getting their invoices sent on time, which means they're getting paid on time, which has been really positive for a business, especially one that's growing. Cash flow is really important. So yeah, that's wanted to just discuss those tangible notes, and all yours, Nicole.
Awesome. Thanks, Tones and Lindsay, for showing us an example of how you guys help many of our manufacturing customers improve the way they work and also help prepare them for growth. And I know today we've got a lot of customers in different lines of the manufacturing industry, and I know they run different production styles as well. So if you'd like to discuss your specific business requirements further, InfoSpark are offering a free proof of concept for the first 5 people that sign up today, which I'd highly encourage you to take advantage of. So if you scan the QR code and fill out some details, their team will be in touch with you shortly. And before we start our Q&A, for those who have to jump, thanks so much for attending our webinar. We'll be sending through an email afterwards with a custom dashboard that will have the recording as well as the questions that will be asked, along with the answers to them, of course. And for those with questions, Do feel free to continue adding them with the Q&A button, or raise your hand if you do want to chat with us live. Cool. Oh, I can see we've already got some questions. So we'll just start with this one from Steve. So we struggle to know when we should start production in order to achieve a customer deadline. It can be hard to take into account the shipping and production timeframes and other lead times. Can Smartsheet help with that?
Yeah, I can take that question actually. We've had a couple of clients mention that kind of challenge. This is what's really good about Smartsheet, and we haven't had enough time to show in heaps of detail today, but in Smartsheet we do have the ability, we can write formulas and kind of have a matrix of how long things take to ship. For one of our clients, they ship stuff all around Australia, and they know when they're sending things to WA, it takes a little bit longer. So in their production system, Smartsheet will actually calculate when the sales team are kind of inputting the job into the system, they can put in the date that their client needs the item by, and then Smartsheet will actually work backwards and go, well, because that client's based in WA, it's going to take 4 days to ship, and this item typically takes X amount of days to produce. So Smartsheet will actually tell the production manager and say, hey, you should be starting this by this date. And that's where some of that like color coding, things like that you saw in Lindsay's demonstration, it would go red if it was going to be produced too late to meet the customer's deadline. So there's a lot of little things like that we can incorporate into a Smartsheet solution that can, be a massive time saver for you.
Awesome. Thanks, Tones. And I have another question that's just popped up. They're just wondering, with the environment you have today, is that something based off a template set, or does that require further customization?
Oh, yeah, that's a really good question. That is what you saw today is our own demo, kind of based on our own little template. And I think that's what's great about Smartsheet. If you looked at that today and thought, hey, that's pretty much how I work, we can actually deliver that to you, and it can be pretty low cost. And then we can further refine it and customize it to you. What's great about Smartsheet is there's a lot of templates and things like that available. So you can start with an excellent foundation and then work with us or even yourself to refine it in a way that can wrap around your business. Really an important distinction between Smartsheet and kind of other tools in this space is you can customize Smartsheet in a way that works for the way you work, rather than buying something off the shelf that you have to kind of change your processes to match the way it works or the flows it incorporates.
Great. Thanks, Antonio. And another's just come in. What happens if my organization does both production styles, so both process and project? How would that go in Smartsheet?
Oh, that's a really good question, Nicole. We actually have a bit of that. Earlier, I mentioned kind of design work. We actually have clients that the design work is run in a very project style way, but the actual production is very, very process driven. So the good thing about Smartsheet is we can have a bit of a hybrid. And as Lindsay and Nicole mentioned today, you saw process production in action. We're happy to offer that to the first 5 customers, their own proof of concept, and we can kind of tailor that in to adjust to the way you work. So you could see how your processes could work inside Smartsheet, see if it'd be a good fit for your organization.
Perfect. I think that's all we have in terms of the written questions. Did anyone want to come off mute, perhaps, and ask a question in real time? No? All good then. Well, look, really appreciate everyone for joining us today. Again, if you've got any further questions, you can either reach out to Antonio directly or scan the QR code to get into that proof of concept session with them. And for those who are already that already have account managers with Smartsheet, feel free to reach out to them as well. Otherwise, I hope you all enjoy the rest of your week. And thanks again, Tones and Lindsay.
No, thanks,
Thank you.
guys. Have a great week, everyone.
Cheers, guys.